Welcome to NewsNation's Backscroll, where we look back at our major news coverage on the most important topics and personalities of our time. Escalating bird flu cases are causing egg prices to skyrocket, with some grocery stores running out of eggs altogether. NewsNation's Ryan Bass is live in St. Petersburg, Florida, with more. Ryan, people are getting up this morning. They're making breakfast. Chances are they're making eggs. Any information on when these prices will come down?
It's going to get worse, Henna, unfortunately, before it gets better. I mean, going to some of the local grocery stores here in St. Pete, they're either shelves are empty or the prices for the eggs that are left are just through the roof expensive from what it was even just a year ago. And it's not just inflation, right? We are seeing bird flu killing millions and millions of chicken flocks across the country, and it's really hurting the nation's egg-laying population right now, which is leading to this supply shortage. And it is what is expected to take months to replace those flocks and hopefully start to bring down prices. The Department of Agriculture says 136 million birds have been infected or died due to bird flu since January of 2022, and more than 13 million chickens have been killed in just the last month to try and slow the spread of this virus. And that steep drop is what has caused this sharp spike in the cost of eggs that we're seeing at grocery chains nationwide. I mean, in states like California, prices have reached nearly $9 a carton, up 70% since December, according to the USDA's Egg Markets report. We've seen, again, empty eggshells. We've seen some limits placed on the number of cartons that people can purchase at a time to try and save some of the supply that these grocery stores have. And you look from coast to coast, the wholesale price of a dozen eggs from California to New York and across the Midwest, I mean, it's costing anywhere between $6 to even nearly $9 a carton. And eggs nationwide, they cost 37% more than they did a year ago at this time, according to the Consumer Price Index. You know, last week before President Trump's inauguration, the Department of Health and Human Services said it would give Moderna just under $600 million to try and accelerate bird flu vaccine trials to try and get a hold of this outbreak that we're seeing. No word yet from the Trump administration in terms of what they want to do here. You know, it was a promise by President Trump on the campaign trail before he was elected to try and lower grocery prices. By the way, the last time, Hannah, it was crazy. I was looking this up, that eggs were under $2 a carton for a dozen. It was January of 2022, of course, when the bird flu outbreak first originated. It has been a long time since we've seen cheap eggs in this country.
Yeah, it's been years. The big concern now, Ryan, is, are eggs safe to eat?
Yeah, so the FDA actually put out an alert and said that, yes, they are safe to eat. So, if you're going to the grocery store, you just bought eggs, or you're cooking breakfast this morning, just do know they are safe, right? The risk of getting bird flu to humans is incredibly rare. You know, in fact, the CDC is tracking cases across the country. They say there's been 67 human cases that have been reported, just one death that has been reported as well out of Louisiana. The state of California, though, did declare a state of emergency because the virus is spreading among dairy cattle there. So if you did buy eggs and you're concerned, the CDC says there are some things that you can do. Number one, when you buy them, don't leave them out too long. Try and put them in the refrigerator as quickly as you can once you get back from the grocery store. And they say make sure you cook those eggs thoroughly to a degrees of 165 degrees. But basically, make sure they're cooked before you eat them. So that way you can kill any bacteria or virus that there may be there, Henna. But in terms of when, us going out to the grocery store, that we can see prices, start to drop on eggs, it could take some months here, and it could get higher before we start to see these prices come down.
Higher than $9 for a carton of eggs. Unbelievable. Ryan Bass, which seems like a very chilly morning in St. Petersburg, Florida this morning. Ryan, thank you so much. Trader Joe's is the latest business to have to change policy to keep up with rising egg prices and shrinking supplies. The grocer announcing a nationwide egg purchase limit, restricting the amounts of eggs shoppers can buy in a single day. NewsNation's Caitlin Becker is live in New York City with more. I see Trader Joe's behind you, Caitlin. Good morning. Are things as bad as they seem when it comes to egg prices?
Henna, it's not great. So some places like Trader Joe's are, I wouldn't say they're going to extremes, but they are taking some new measures to combat the egg shortage. Now, nationwide at all 600 Trader Joe's stores, there's a cap. You can only buy 1 carton of eggs per person per day. And the company implemented this. We just went inside. This Trader Joe's opened a little while ago. We went out inside and there is a sign right next to the eggs. They are fully stocked right now, but it does say that we encourage you to just get 1 carton. Now, the reason for that, according to Trader Joe's, is to be diplomatic and fair. They say because of these ongoing issues with the supply of eggs, they're limiting things so that all of the customers who need eggs are able to purchase them when they go to a Trader Joe's, so that you're not going to be seeing this price gouging that we're seeing in other places. The cost of eggs at Trader Joe's are right around that national average right now. The average across the country is about $4.19. And in TJ's right here behind me, on the lower end, it's like $3.49, and then it's going up to about $6 depending upon what kind of eggs you're getting. But 1 carton per person. So that's going to be tough for some people. A family of 4, 12 eggs, that's going to go very, very quickly. So you might have to continue to do those shops day in and day out, or, go somewhere else and risk higher prices, Henna. So it's going to be a little tough at the breakfast table for some people. I saw a joke that said, come Easter, we're going to have to start decorating potatoes.
I'll do it with you, Caitlin. If that's what it comes down to, we can do that. But egg prices have been steadily rising. It feels like we've hit a breaking point. What are you seeing?
I know, seeing that $3.49 carton of eggs, I would like to run in and get some before I end this day, because I got stuck paying $16 for 18 eggs here, Henna, in New York City on the Upper East Side, because places can charge that much. And taking a look at a couple places across the country, look at these numbers. In Chicago, you're seeing $7.99 on average for 12 eggs. Down in North Carolina, in Charlotte, $9.09 for 18, and in Newark, $8.49 for 18 eggs. And the really unfortunate thing that we're seeing is, according to the USDA, this is not going to get any better, at least in the near future. They're projecting a rise in prices 20.3%. Hopefully, they say that could go down come Q2, come that second quarter, so long as the avian flu issue is curtailed and handled. And we know part of the reason these prices are going up so high is because when 1 chicken in a flock tests positive for the bird flu, they have to slaughter the entire flock for safety reasons. And it can take half a year, 9 months, in order to get egg production back up. So that's why you're seeing the shortage, the delays, and of course, really, it just comes down to safety. But man, that sticker shock, Henna.
Q2 seems really far away right now when you look at those egg prices. Caitlin Becker, thank you so much. If you've been to the grocery store lately, I don't have to tell you, egg prices are still sky high, but at least they have leveled out for the time being. This week's average of $8.14 for a dozen is nearly double the price we were paying back in January. That wasn't that long ago. Well, now the Department of Justice is getting involved as well, trying to crack down on what is really to blame. This, as a watchdog group says that those astronomical prices are not just because of the bird flu outbreak. NewsNation's Anna Koyman has been following this story for months now. Anna, what are you learning?
Yeah, I've got some explaining to do, don't I? But is there really funny business going on or not? Are corporations using the fear of supply chain shortages to drive up egg prices unnecessarily? Or is bird flu truly the only culprit for your higher omelet bills? Well, on Friday, we learned that the Department of Justice has launched an investigation trying to find some answers and determine if egg producers are working together at the expense of the American consumer. We talked to a watchdog group that says a massive source for the soaring egg prices is that a handful of companies, there's about 10 of them or so, that control the vast majority of the eggs that we produce and eat here in the United States, and therefore they dictate egg prices. Food and Water Watch crunched the profit margins for one of America's largest egg producers, Cal-Maine Foods, and the watchdog group says they believe their findings prove price gouging.
Cal-Maine, they actually increased their profits by 7.5 times over the first year of this bird flu outbreak. And this was despite having any outbreaks in any of its flocks during that fiscal year. So basically, they just raised their prices in lockstep with national prices. They had no reason to. They were not facing increased costs because of bird flu. And they ended up breaking in, we calculated $1 billion in windfall profits. So that's $1 billion in windfall profits that they made from the consumers having to pay more for eggs.
Oh boy, and reporters did reach out to Cal-Maine Foods for a comment, but without success. And the American Egg Board president is telling the Associated Press the accusations towards this industry, the egg industry as a whole, are unfounded and price hikes are directly directly related to the outbreak, stating, quote, "This has nothing to do with anything other than bird flu, and I think to suggest anything else is a misreading of the facts and the reality." And all, of course, this is going on is eyes are now on this new DOJ investigation and what it's going to be turning up.
Yeah, let's talk specifically about the bird flu. What costs are American egg farmers dealing with as a result of this?
Right. So even if they are not plagued by one of these outbreaks themselves, they've got some preventative measures too. Perhaps the biggest cost for farmers is that when one hen gets bird flu, the practice has been to quickly slaughter the entire flock, often millions of birds all at once. And all of this is in an effort, of course, to limit the spread of the disease and prevent animals from suffering. Experts say, though, it can take up to a year to clean the farm and raise new birds to egg-laying age. Now, there are also costs associated with creating more space for chickens to spread out and decrease the spread of any virus. Although the watchdog group that we talked to argues that a lot of these big suppliers are still stuffing huge numbers of hens into small places, making them, as they say, hotbeds for disease. And then there is the bird flu vaccine and farmhand costs associated to try to keep these flocks healthy. The Food and Water Watch Group hopes that there will be legislation to stop, in their words, mega mergers within the food industry and prevent price gouging opportunities, something they say, Henna, is happening right now with the price of eggs. We're going to be keeping you updated on this on my show this afternoon, of course, too. The new investigation that was launched by the DOJ, we don't have a lot of information on that, but we're working on it.
Good news on the eggflation front. Prices are finally coming down. As of Friday, the average wholesale price for a dozen eggs was just $3. We haven't seen those prices in a while. It's a drastic 63% drop since a month ago when the record high was $8.15. Economists credit dwindling cases of the bird flu and increased egg supplies thanks to imports for the overall price decline, and say you will see those prices at your local grocery store within the coming weeks. 4 weeks ago, we spoke to Gail Livingstone, owner and operator of Roots Farm in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, about the impact the bird flu was having on her business. We're happy to say she's back this morning. Farmer Gail, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy to be
here. We love having you. When you were here last time, you talked about the worry and concern you had about the bird flu outbreak, that it could hit your farm and all your chickens. How are things today? Has that concern lessened at all?
It's about the same for me because I haven't really gotten any direct communication from any of the federal or state agencies about, what's being done locally to help minimize our risk. So, we're still sitting pretty much in the same position.
I mentioned the U.S. is importing eggs from other countries to help with these shortages. You have really strong feelings about that. Tell me about it.
Well, it's good and well to import eggs from other places that we don't regulate. Same issue with importing food. We don't know how those chickens are being treated, what they're being fed, what's being done to that product before it gets to us, right? So those of us who are concerned with what we're truly getting as far as a healthy product, we don't know. And so I just feel like, having, the current administration have this America First motto that they're stressing, we need to focus more on ensuring our own security here at home. What are we truly going to do for the long term to ensure that we can minimize our risk to the bird flu in the future?
That is a fantastic point. At least with our local farms, we know exactly what we're getting. Billions of dollars in funding to the USDA has been cut by the current administration. Do you think these cuts will impact your business?
Oh, yes, most definitely. A lot of what folks see in the supermarket as far as cheap food, the reason that food is cheap is because of the subsidies that the USDA provide to farmers, local small farmers, large operations. Those subsidies are needed. The cost of eggs cannot stay the same year over year. The cost of nothing can stay the same year over year. And that's what people need to realize. If the cost of our utilities go up, the cost to live goes up. So the cost to raise chickens go up year over year. We have to pay ourselves more. We need to pay our employees more. Our operating costs, the cost of diesel goes up. All of the input costs do go up. So over the years, the price of eggs really they should be at $9 for real right now. I mean, a pasture-raised organic egg should be at $9 to $10 a dozen.
I am curious, have you heard from the government on what comes next without those crucial funds?
We have not. We are really just sitting here waiting. Everything we've heard is that they're reviewing all of the programs one by one, and as they get through those, we will get an update. A lot of the programs that were still receiving funds in the beginning of the year through the NRCS, and those have been put on hold as well. So, we are just waiting. We're in a just, and then there's more programs getting cut.
Yeah.
So it does hurt. It does hurt the local food supply.
Gil, what do you want people to understand about your prices and what you've done to sustain your business, your farm?
So what I want folks to understand is that we're not living high on the hog. Okay. I've spent the last 5 years living in an RV. That's how little margins we have on what we do. Okay. That I couldn't even build my home because we don't make that kind of money. So when you come to the farmers market or you engage with us to buy our products, understand that we are charging a fair market price based on what it costs us to produce the item. It is not that we're not paying our workers, below minimum wage. We are paying our workers a fair living wage on the farms these days. And so we need the consumer to understand, to bring you that high quality, fresh produce to market, we need to be able to ask you to pay a fair price for it. And, don't haggle with us. It's food. It's not a material thing. It's something that you need to sustain yourself. So we appreciate folks supporting us and continuing to understand why it's a necessity for them to pay a fair market price for the items that we're selling.
There is sticker shock in the dairy section. The price of a standard dozen eggs more than doubling in 12 months. In December, a carton costing an average of $4.25, a massive jump from $1.93 back in January of last year. But while inflation is wearing down the pocketbooks of many Americans, the blame for the price hike can be mostly put on an outbreak of bird flu across the U.S. More than 57 million birds have been affected. 43 million egg-laying hens were lost either to the disease itself or to depopulation since the outbreak began. All of this leaving egg inventories down nearly 30% here in the U.S. Joining us now is Lee Carter with Meslansky and Partners in New York to talk all things economy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And Lee, eggs have always been a low-cost, reliable protein staple. I ate all of the scrambled eggs in college. These prices, though, are unreal. When are we going to see these prices come back down to normal levels?
I think it's a really fair question, and people are very concerned about the economy right now. And this egg price issue it's a kitchen table issue. Everybody's talking about it. It is a big question. Are they going to come down? Are they going to come down quickly? I think a lot of people are saying that it is because of the bird flu. But when you think about how the banks are talking about what to expect in the next year, they all had their earnings calls on Friday, and many of them say the worst is still to come. Jamie Dimon said we still don't know the ultimate effect of all of the headwinds that are coming against us, including inflation. Bank of America's CEO said we're seeing increasing slowdown in the economic environment. And so I think all of that leads us to believe that they're expecting the worst is still to come. JP Morgan is expecting that a mild recession later in 23 and early 24. So I don't think that we're going to see prices come down real soon.
Well, and there is a meme circulating, if we want a moment of levity here, suggesting if you want to get your significant other something expensive for Valentine's Day, just get them a few cartons of eggs. Does that sound like a good idea to you? We're looking at it right there. Just this guy holding all of these cartons.
I think it's hilarious, although if my husband gave me a carton of eggs for Valentine's Day, I don't think I'd be all that happy.
Yeah, you'd be like, are you cooking me a frittata? Is that why you're giving me, are you making a custard? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, maybe they should be cooking us eggs in bed.
100% every day. We use all those eggs. Give us a gut check quickly on inflation and the economy across the board. Are we in an improving pattern in the next few months when it comes to inflation? Are we headed towards a recession? What are you tracking?
So based on what the bank's earnings calls were saying on Friday, what we're expecting to hear from Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs this week, I don't think that the worst is behind us. Although I do think that the consumer is starting to think that it is. When you start looking at the numbers, people are more optimistic today than they were just a year ago. 26% said that things were going well a year ago, while 34% say this year. So we're starting to see trends in the consumer are feeling better. People are saying the economy is good. 22% said a year ago. 31% say the economy is good today. So I think people are starting to feel optimistic and more hopeful. But when you listen to the language that the banks are using, financial institutions are using, I think they're very, very cautious in what to expect in the coming months.
I appreciate it. Lee Carter, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
$8 eggs. Americans are feeling it at the grocery store, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture is predicting egg prices will just keep climbing. The hike forcing restaurants to introduce egg surcharges in many cases. A major factor, of course, behind egg prices is the bird flu. So far this year, more than 32 million birds have been affected. The price for a dozen eggs was already on the rise under President Biden, $4.61 on January 10th. Now a dozen eggs costing you $8.07. That's up 75% this year. For the very latest on the economy, we're bringing in Market Rebellion co-founder and renowned market analyst, John Najarian. John, it's so good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. And we're talking about this eggs up more than 75% already this year. Are we going to be looking at $10 eggs, or when can we expect prices to crack?
And I love the pun, whether it was intended or not.
Very intentional, very intentional.
Thank you, Natasha. The last part of that question is the easiest one to answer, and that is when you've got, as you say, 32 million hens or egg layers affected, you're going to take about 6 months to replace that. And that's just because you can't really speed up how fast a chick goes from basically being a chicken that comes out of the egg into an egg layer. So we've lost 20 to 25 million hens that can no longer produce. They had to be sacrificed or whatever because of the avian flu. So you're really looking right now at about June. It's about 6 months, that replacement cycle. So not a lot you can do, but I'm sure that we will be bringing in a lot more eggs from the Netherlands and from Canada. Yeah, Canada, believe it or not, is one of the biggest producers that brings eggs to us. And the good news for us is they're relatively close, and they're not getting anywhere near the $7.75 or $8 for eggs up in Canada. So they'll be more than happy to send them down to us.
Yeah, but before June, how expensive are you expecting eggs to get? Are we talking $10, $12? What are you tracking?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, the jump has been so dramatic already, Natasha, that I would think that we're, like I say, going to see supply meet demand. When the United States supply dwindled as it did, you and I just discussed, it has to be replaced by something or prices just keep going up. I think it will be replaced by eggs from, as I say, Canada first, Netherlands second, several other countries after that, because they'll take advantage of it the same way that an oil-producing country would take advantage of a spike in oil prices. If it wasn't in their neck of the woods, they'd certainly ship that oil to where they could get more money for it. So supply and demand still works. And unfortunately, this avian flu is what drove prices 75% higher than January.
Yeah, and it's not just eggs, right? Americans getting slammed on food prices at the grocery store. You know, food is more expensive right now than during the pandemic. How long do you expect this sort of gut punch at the grocery store to last?
Well, again, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people have gotten used to a certain amount of dining out. And of course, they're competing with restaurants for many of these foodstuffs. Luckily, the rest of them aren't nearly as affected as eggs have been. So I don't really expect the rest of food prices to be such a major contributor to consumer prices, Natasha. I think more or less we're going to see consumers finding alternatives to eggs in the short term. And then as more and more Canadian and so forth eggs come in to meet the demand, I think prices will be coming down at both the restaurant level and at the consumer level. But when energy's high, as it has been, and when, of course, basically where you live whether, in California, Western North Carolina, Florida, a lot of pressures that are inflationary have been pushed because of basically human needs to have a roof over your head. And that is one of the big contributors that can't go away as quickly as the egg prices can come down.
New Friday numbers show egg prices are rising. Many Americans are suffering from extreme sticker shock. In just over a month, prices jumping over $3 from $4.61 on January 10th to $7.74 on the wholesale market. Here with us is Robert Hodges, the owner of Sunflower Breakfast, Lunch and Bakery in Greenville, South Carolina, to discuss how the price hike has restaurants scrambling their business plans to make ends meet. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to have you because I'm so curious about the financial pressure. We know it's real for restaurants like yours that specialize in breakfast. Now, I want to dive into the numbers that you gave the team back in November. You were paying 38 cents per egg. Now you're averaging 68 cents. And I know 30 cents may not seem like a lot to our viewers, but this is a 79% increase for every single egg. I want to ask you, Robert, first, how sustainable is this business model for you?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I mean, restaurants by nature are going to have small margins. And so what we look at is $270 a week, close to or a little bit over $1,000 a month that we're paying extra for eggs. So it makes an impact for sure.
How has it impacted your bottom line?
Yeah, I mean, basically coming down to, a little bit over $1,000 increase in price. Or increase in cost to our bottom line. So, it definitely has made impact.
You're one of the restaurants that has not raised prices despite the recent surge in costs. Do you fear pushback from your customers if you do raise prices, especially when it comes to any meal that involves eggs, or do you think they would understand?
Yeah, that's a tough question. And that's something that we talk about every day. Right now, I just want to be, we're a community-driven restaurant. We're in the middle of several neighborhoods, and I feel like everyone is affected by these egg prices. And so we're really trying to hold off and make it accessible to everyone in our neighborhoods. But yeah, I mean, at some point, I might have to increase just for the nature of the business.
Sure. It's not just businesses that are hurting, too. There are people at home who are making eggs, and like I mentioned, they have sticker shock. What are you hearing from your community, your customers?
Yeah, I mean, everyone is in the same boat. Obviously, we're purchasing a lot more as a restaurant, but I mean, every customer that comes in is talking about the increase in price for the eggs.
We're showing a sign to our viewers across the country. There's stores, and we're going to show it. It's photographed by, that's the store, the shot, I should say. It's photographed by one of our team members. They're being forced to raise prices, and they're saying, look, all sandwiches with eggs in their preparation will be increased in price, at least temporarily. Would it no longer be feasible to keep selling egg-based dishes here, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, the number that I have in mind is if we had 100% price increase, that's kind of like my threshold of like, okay, it's clear that we have to increase prices. And for our restaurant being breakfast and lunch, there's eggs in almost every dish. So, yeah, I mean, at that point, we would have to increase the prices. But like I said, I'm really trying to hold off as much as possible and hoping that this changes sooner than later.
We are hearing that egg prices are not going to go down at least anytime soon. Are you worried about the long-term impact it will have on your business?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is something that we're, I think the more we see an increase in price, the easier it will be to explain that to the customer. So, yeah, I think in time to avoid having a long-term effect, then, yeah, we might have to increase a little bit. But as of right now, I'm trying my best just to get as many people in the door. We're still a newer restaurant, and so we're trying to get the word out as much as possible.
Well, good luck to you. Good luck to your business. I love the name Sunflower, by the way. Very, very cool. Robert Hodges, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Now, let's look at this. How about the price of eggs, which we have talked so much about because of bird flu, that maybe you're wondering a little bit about the price of chicken. Now, chicken has barely budged. We have it actually up here on the chart right now. You know, the egg prices, first of all, at the top. So egg prices are the top line, then it's chicken. So egg prices are up like, what, 53%. Chicken prices, again, barely moved at all. And the simple answer as to why, broilers. Chickens raised for meat have not been hit as hard by the bird flu because of higher turnaround with broiler production as opposed to eggs. All right, let's look at this. Here's some numbers. There have been more than 147 million birds that have been impacted by the bird flu. So that's the first thing up there. And then you look at it, and about 13 million of them were just broilers. So percentage-wise, that is 9% of the total. So only 9% of the total. And then in terms of the broiler production, it's only 0.5/10,000% of broiler production. So you get the idea here in the game of chicken. Your wallet wins if you avoid the eggs, I guess, is our lesson on By the Numbers today. NewsNation now will be right back. Quick break.
National average for 1 dozen carton, it still sits above $8. The USDA says we will continue to see these high prices for months to come, one of the direct effects the bird flu is having on the nation. Now, before those eggs get to your grocery store, thousands of farmers across the country, they're raising chickens. They're harvesting those eggs. Many of them are seeing the impact of this outbreak firsthand, including Gail Livingstone, owner, operator, and farmer at Deep Roots Farm in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Farmer Gail, welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to this conversation. All of us, consumers, we've been struggling with rising egg prices. A lot of us, though, will never understand what it's been like from the farmer's perspective. What have you been going through, Gail?
So the worry, the concern every day that I'm going to end up with an infection and have to terminate my entire flock. It's just the anxiety that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So every morning we go back and we check, and then we go back in the afternoon and we check again, and we're just monitoring multiple times a day and just praying that we don't end up with an infection.
Exactly a year ago, you posted pictures on your social media showing your chickens and dozens of eggs at your farm. How much has changed since you posted?
Well, I would say, it is the winter. So we don't have as high a production in the winter months. And so right now we've stopped selling eggs on our website because we're seeing such an increase in demand for local eggs. But for now, we usually order a new batch of chickens every other year. And when we went to place our order for those 400 new birds that usually would arrive in April, we were told they're not going to be available until June because of the high demand. So for certified organic chickens, we need to get day-old chicks that are not treated with any antibiotics. And so that demand has gone up tremendously. So that supplier is struggling to keep up.
Thank you for that perspective. That's exactly what I think a lot of people don't know. We know you've had to raise your prices. Can you share why you were forced to make that decision, what your customers are now saying to you?
Yes. So again, folks have to understand, if and when something does go wrong on a farm, we need to have that cash reserves to cover those costs. Now, were we to experience a loss with our flock, the cost to replace that flock, the cost to mitigate further damage, we can't go to the bank and borrow that money. And we are, as farmers, we have very slim margins on our vegetables. So we're not sitting on a ton of cash in the bank or millions of dollars in credit lines that we can tap into when something goes wrong. We have to have some kind of cushion for when things go wrong. But when things go wrong on a farm, they go really, really wrong. So the cost to replace those birds, now the price for a bird went from being under $15 per pullet to being over $20 per pullet. And a pullet is a 21-week-old bird.
And you mentioned there's already slim margins when it comes to farming. I can't imagine how much more difficult this is for you. How are you trying to protect your farm? Have you been given any guidance from the government on what to do and how to do it?
Well, one of the steps in particular that they recommend is to minimize traffic on your farm. Right now, you can't control what kind of birds come on and off your property, but you can control people and vehicles. So, minimizing the number of vehicles that come onto your property because those vehicles are going onto other farms or other properties. There's an opportunity there for them to also transport if there is an infection or infestation at that location to your property. So we just try to, for right now, just kind of say to our customers, we would love to have you visit the farm. However, because of this bird flu, we're really trying to keep the number of people that come to the farm to a minimum.
And I have no doubt, I would like to think people understand that. Luckily, I've been told, thankfully, you have not had any sick chickens yet. But if that were to happen, what would be the next step? How could one sick chicken impact your entire farm?
One sick chicken would mean we would have to terminate our entire flock because there's no way to really identify, how far the infection has spread or which birds the infection has spread to until they get sick. And so mitigate that, you would have to terminate the entire flock.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Good luck. We hope you come back. I'm really interested in the story. I want you to keep us updated. Farmer Gail Livingstone, thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
You as well.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, if you're eating eggs for breakfast right now, you might be one of the lucky ones, actually. In some areas, the average price for a dozen eggs is over $10, if you can even find them. Egg shortage and high prices are being blamed on bird flu, but some say that's not the case. And companies are creating this crisis by being greedy and gouging their customers. NewsNation Now weekend anchor Anna Koyman has been looking into why egg prices are so high right now. So, Anna, give us the scoop. What'd you find?
I mean, can the prices just go back to where they were, for crying out loud? Our family loves eggs. So here's the question for you this morning. Are corporations using the fear of supply chain shortages to drive up egg prices unnecessarily? Or is bird flu truly to blame for your higher omelet bills? We talked to a watchdog group that says a handful of companies, about 10, control the vast majority of the eggs that we produce and eat here in the United States. And therefore, they dictate egg prices. Whether there's an outbreak of bird flu or not, the cost of eggs has been skyrocketing, and it all appears to be legal.
Maine, they actually increased their profits by 7.5 times over the first year of this bird flu outbreak. And this was despite having any outbreaks in any of its flocks during that fiscal year. So basically, they just raised their prices in lockstep with national prices. They had no reason to. They were not facing increased costs because of bird flu. And they ended up breaking in, we calculated $1 billion in windfall profits. So that's $1 billion in windfall profits that they made from the consumers having to pay more for eggs.
So Food and Water Watch, this watchdog group, crunched the profit margins for one of America's largest egg producers, Cal-Maine Foods, she's talking about. And the watchdog group says what they found seems to be price gouging. Now, reporters did reach out to Cal-Maine Foods for comment without success, but the American Egg Board president tells the Associated Press that the accusations toward the industry are unfounded and price hikes are directly related to the outbreak, stating, quote, "This has nothing to do with anything other than bird flu." And I think to suggest anything else is a misreading of the facts and the reality. That's their statement. And she goes on to say that American farmers, Marky, are in the fight of their lives, and they are doing everything they can to keep the birds safe.
Anna, I took my family to Original House of Pancakes over the weekend, and on every table there was a little sign that said 50-cent surcharge for anybody who's ordering eggs.
Right.
And it's sad. It's disappointing to look down and be reminded of that.
It all adds up. I saw Parsons is learning to clap. That's
She's
exciting.
learning to clap.
Congrats.
She's watching me right now, and she's clapping for her mama, and it just it makes my entire day. As you know, as a mom yourself, it's the best. Hey, Anna Koyman, thanks so much. Appreciate it. We'll check back in.